Thousands of people have taken part in a far-right protest in central London this afternoon, led by activist Tommy Robinson. There's also been an anti-racist counter-protest nearby.
Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson, two of the most polarizing figures in British politics, have recently made headlines by coming together to deliver a scathing critique of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's leadership. Their joint condemnation has sparked significant debate and controversy, especially as it touches on one of the most sensitive and divisive issues in the UK today, immigration. In their critique, Farage and Robinson did not merely question Starmer's policies.
Yes, it's been despicable. I mean, broadcasters saying these are Farage's riots, prominent Labour politicians. This is what Nigel Farage wanted. As if somehow I'm responsible, some even suggesting that I'm orchestrating the riots. I have spent 30 years...
but laid the blame for the recent anti-immigration riots squarely at his feet, accusing him of failing to address the root causes of the unrest. This video delves into the dynamics of this unlikely partnership, the arguments they have put forward, and the broader implications for British politics. Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Nigel Farage, the former leader of the UK Independence Party, UKIP, and the Brexit Party, is a veteran of British political warfare. Known for his oratory skills and his ability to tap into the frustrations of the British electorate, Farage has built a career on challenging the political establishment.
In this parliament whatsoever, even though some of us have tried many times over the years previously to get here. So we can't judge you from working in this place, but we can judge you from the way the outside world sees you. And I don't just mean the United Kingdom, I mean the world, because Prime Minister's Questions time is global box office politics, and it's pretty clear to everybody that you act with great neutrality, that you have brought tremendous dignity.
His role in the Brexit referendum cemented his reputation as a figure who could bring about significant change by rallying those who felt ignored or betrayed by mainstream politicians. On the other hand, Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, has been a much more controversial figure. As the founder of the English Defence League, EDL, Robinson has often been associated with far-right ideologies and has been a frequent subject of media scrutiny due to his provocative stance on Islam and immigration. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, Robinson has amassed a significant following among those who feel that their concerns about immigration and cultural change are dismissed by the mainstream media and political elites.
I believe we need to protect the British public right now.
So what's the answer to the question?
British Muslims?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, the British public. I didn't say British non-Muslim public.
Right.
I said the British public. We've had
What are you
would you ban me?
We've had
Tommy,
three
you're a
terror
straight
attacks.
talker.
Children are being killed.
Yes, we all know what's been happening.
Yes, I would. I would stop.
You would ban all Muslims.
I would temporarily halt Muslim immigration to this country until we get a grip of the problem. I differentiate Muslims from Islam.
Right.
Okay?
But what you don't do...
differentiate Muslims
Muslims are people. Islam is an idea.
Yeah.
Islam's an idea. A bad idea.
And
Islam
Muslims
is a faith.
follow.
No, it's an idea.
It's a faith.
It's an idea that you can change your mind.
No, it's a faith. Like Christianity.
Like Scientology.
Like all faiths.
Like
it's a religion, it's a faith.
Like Scientology?
So, Tommy, if you accept...
It's an ideology.
If you're saying that the problem is with Islam, are you accepting that you're Islamophobic?
The partnership between Farage and Robinson, though unexpected, is rooted in a shared sense of frustration with the current state of British politics. Both men have long argued that the political establishment has failed to address the concerns of ordinary Britons, particularly on issues like immigration. For them, the rise in anti-immigration sentiment and the recent riots are not isolated incidents, but symptoms of a broader problem, a political class that is out of touch with the people it claims to represent. In their recent attack on Keir Starmer, Farage and Robinson have focused on what they perceive as the Labour leader's failure to tackle immigration effectively. They argue that Starmer, who has tried to reposition Labour as a party of the working class after the disastrous 2019 general election, has done little to address the issues that matter most to these voters.
Those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery.
Instead, they claim, Starmer has allowed immigration to spiral out of control, leading to increased tensions and, ultimately, the violent clashes that have erupted in various parts of the country. Farage and Robinson's critique is not just about policy, but also about leadership. They argue that Starmer lacks the vision and the courage to take on the tough issues, preferring instead to placate different factions within his party and the broader electorate. For them, this indecisiveness is not just a political failing, but a moral one, as it leaves ordinary Britons to bear the brunt of the social and economic challenges posed by mass immigration. One of the key points in their argument is that Starmer's approach to immigration has been too passive. They contend that rather than taking a firm stance and implementing policies that would significantly reduce the number of immigrants coming into the UK, Starmer has been content to tinker at the edges, introducing half measures that do little to address the underlying issues. For Farage and Robinson, this is symptomatic of a broader problem within the Labour Party, which they claim has lost touch with its traditional base and is more concerned with appeasing liberal elites than with addressing the concerns of working-class Britons. The recent anti-immigration riots have provided a grim backdrop to Farage and Robinson's criticism. These riots, which have seen violent clashes between protesters and police, are, according to them, a direct result of the government's failure to control immigration. They argue that these riots are not just the work of a few extremists
fighting elections, believing that is the way to solve problems in society, not to resort to violence. I've never gone anywhere near, I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. Members of the extreme right who say very provocative things like Tommy Robinson or the others. The reason they hate me, the reason they're blaming me is twofold. The first is the Labour Party are terrified that many of their own voters will vote for me, because when Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister,
but a manifestation of widespread frustration among the British public, who feel that their concerns about immigration are being ignored. Farage, in particular, has been quick to draw parallels between the current situation and the build-up to the Brexit referendum. He argues that just as the British public felt betrayed by the political establishment's failure to address their concerns about the European Union, they now feel similarly let down by the government's handling of immigration. According to Farage, the riots are a warning sign that the public's patience is wearing thin, and that unless the government takes decisive action, the situation could deteriorate further. Robinson, for his part, has focused on what he sees as the cultural impact of immigration. He argues that the rapid influx of immigrants, particularly from Muslim-majority countries,
it's become a well-established and distressing pattern. Summertime and the boat crossings surge. This summer has also brought a new government. First on their agenda was scrapping the threat of deporting migrants to Rwanda. But how to deter those willing to make this dangerous and sometimes deadly journey
has led to significant changes in British society, changes that many people feel uncomfortable with. Robinson has long warned of the dangers of what he calls Islamization, and he sees the recent riots as a reaction to the perceived erosion of traditional British values and culture. Both Farage and Robinson have also taken issue with the way in which the government and the media have responded to the riots.
So anyone who's educated on Islam, on Mohammed, they know full well it's a violent fascist ideology that promotes war against non-Muslims, that promotes slavery of non-Muslims and promotes rape of non-Muslims. We're fed up of the lies. Unfortunately, this could have been a mental health incident in Southport, but we don't believe them anymore because of their continued lies. No one believes them anymore.
But Tommy, is the rioting in the UK going to put an end to that kind of terrorism? The new Labour Party government is holding your far-right movement, members of the English Defence League, for bringing UK to a knife's edge, whether it is the Downing Street, Southport or even Sunderland, and for spreading misinformation about the identity of the 17-year-old Southport attacker as an asylum seeker. Are you and the English Defence League?
They accuse Starmer and his allies of downplaying the scale of the unrest and of refusing to acknowledge the legitimate concerns of those who are protesting, Instead, they claim, the government has focused on condemning the violence and cracking down on the rioters without addressing the underlying causes of the unrest. In this context, Farage and Robinson's message is clear. The riots are a symptom of a much deeper problem, one that will not go away until the government takes action to address the root causes. They argue that the only way to do this is by implementing stricter immigration controls and by taking a tougher stance on those who refuse to integrate into British society.
Of supporters, though some very offensive anti-Muslim chants. During the afternoon, we did speak to some of his supporters.
I actually had most of my... The government that's installed are not acting in the best interest of the people. They're not even listening to what the people want. So I want to know what can be done about that, because it seems like you can't vote your way out of it. Whoever comes into power, they just operate under the same agenda, it feels like. So the people don't have a voice. So I feel like this is the best chance that people have at having a voice, is coming to a gathering like this. But I'm still not really seeing what can be done about it. No one's talking about that. You know? I've already seen this film. I want to know what can be done. That's why I'm here.
Today's protest is about everyone's dissatisfaction with how we're being governed.
Farage has also used this opportunity to take aim at what he sees as the hypocrisy of the political left. He argues that while left-wing politicians and activists are quick to condemn any form of nationalism or criticism of immigration as xenophobic or racist, they are often silent when it comes to the negative consequences of mass immigration. For Farage, this is a sign that the left is more concerned with virtue signaling than with addressing the real issues facing the country. Robinson has echoed this sentiment, arguing that the left's obsession with political correctness has stifled honest debate about immigration and its impact on British society. He contends that by refusing to engage with these issues, the left has effectively handed the narrative over to the far right, who are more than willing to exploit the public's fears and frustrations for their own gain. This partnership between Farage and Robinson, while controversial, has undoubtedly struck a chord with a significant segment of the British population. Many people, particularly those in working-class communities that have borne the brunt of the social and economic changes brought about by immigration, feel that their concerns are being ignored by the political establishment. For them, Farage and Robinson's willingness to speak out on these issues, even at the risk of being labeled as bigots or extremists, is refreshing and necessary.
I'm on holiday with my children. I've not run away from any court case. In fact, I look forward to these court proceedings because it's the British judiciary that's on trial, not me. Nearly 30 million people have watched my film, which they tried to ban. 30 million, okay? Only 9 million people elected the government of my country. This film is in the public's interest. I'm happy that the world has seen the truth. The media lie, they deceive, and they fool the public with their narrative. And I've gone and broke their lies and exposed them in a major way. I'm proud of my work as a journalist, and I stand for freedom of the press and freedom of the speech.
Tommy, the media says that you are lying. Is it true that Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon is your real name and that you're using the pseudonym of Tommy Robinson to hide your identity and a checkered past?
However, the alliance between Farage and Robinson is not without its risks. Both men have been dogged by accusations of racism and xenophobia throughout their careers, and their partnership could alienate more moderate voters who are uncomfortable with their rhetoric. Moreover, by associating himself with Robinson, Farage risks undermining his own credibility and the broader populist movement that he has helped to build. Critics of Farage and Robinson have been quick to point out the dangers of their rhetoric, arguing that it risks inflaming tensions and encouraging further violence. They argue that by framing the issue of immigration in such stark and confrontational terms, Farage and Robinson are feeding into a narrative of division and hostility that could have serious consequences for social cohesion in the UK. Furthermore, some commentators have questioned the validity of Farage and Robinson's arguments.
Some of the conspiracy theories on social media, by telling us the truth about who this young man was that stabbed to death those 3 little girls at that Taylor Swift party, unless we sorted it out, then I said I felt the country was on the verge of revolt. Well, we didn't clear up the mess, and we have had a revolt. So they secondly hate me because I was right.
What I find
so dishonest by those who, again, seek to tar the people that have spoken about a very obvious issue, right? So say illegal border crossings, right? Now, very obviously, you can have an absolute passionate...
Pointing out that immigration is a complex issue with no easy solutions. They argue that while it is important to address the concerns of those who feel left behind by globalization and immigration, this should not come at the expense of demonizing immigrants or ignoring the contributions that they make to British society. In response to these criticisms, Farage and Robinson have argued that they are simply voicing the concerns of ordinary Britons, concerns that are too often dismissed by the political and media elite. They contend that by refusing to address these issues, the government is playing into the hands of the far right and increasing the likelihood of further unrest. The broader implications of this debate are significant. Immigration has long been one of the most contentious issues in British politics, and it is likely to remain so for the foreseeable future. The rise of populist movements across Europe and the election of figures like Donald Trump in the United States have shown that there is a growing appetite for politicians who are willing to challenge the status quo and speak out on issues like immigration, even if it means courting controversy. For Keir Starmer, the criticism from Farage and Robinson presents a serious challenge. As leader of the Labour Party, Starmer has sought to reposition his party as a credible alternative to the Conservatives, capable of winning back the voters who deserted Labour in the 2019 general election.
Thuggery. And it has no place on our streets or online. Right now, there are attacks happening on a hotel in Rotherham. Marauding gangs intent on law-breaking, or worse. Windows smashed, fire set ablaze, residents and staff in absolute fear. There is no justification, none, for taking this action, and all right-minded people should be condemning this sort of violence. People in this country have a right to be safe. And yet, we've seen Muslim communities targeted, attacks on mosques, other minority communities singled out.
However, the issue of immigration is a difficult one for Labour, which is often torn between its traditional working-class base and its more liberal, cosmopolitan supporters. Starmer has attempted to strike a balance by acknowledging the need for immigration reform while also championing the benefits of a diverse and multicultural society. However, this approach has not satisfied everyone, and the recent riots have only served to highlight the divisions within the Labour Party on this issue. The criticism from Farage and Robinson has put Starmer in a difficult position. If he responds by taking a tougher stance on immigration, he risks alienating the more liberal wing of his party. However, if he continues with his current approach, he risks being seen as out of touch with the concerns of ordinary voters, particularly those in Labour's traditional heartlands, who feel that their voices are not being heard. The challenge for Starmer is not just about finding the right policy response to immigration, but also about how he communicates that response to the public. In an era where political rhetoric is increasingly polarized, and where figures like Farage and Robinson have perfected the art of mobilizing public sentiment through provocative and emotive language, Starmer faces the difficult task of crafting a message that is both principled and resonant with the electorate. One of the key criticisms leveled by Farage and Robinson is that Starmer, despite his legal background and his time as Director of Public Prosecutions, lacks the decisiveness and boldness needed to lead the country through a period of profound social and economic change. They argue that his cautious and lawyerly approach to politics makes him ill-suited to address the urgent issues facing the UK today, particularly when it comes to immigration. This critique taps into a broader narrative that has been gaining traction in British politics, the idea that the political class is disconnected from the realities of everyday life for most people. Farage and Robinson have both positioned themselves as outsiders, as voices of the people who are willing to say what the political elites will not. This populist appeal has proven to be incredibly powerful, particularly in areas that have seen significant demographic and economic shifts due to immigration. For Farage, this narrative is a continuation of the one he successfully deployed during the Brexit campaign. He has long argued that the political establishment is more concerned with maintaining the status quo and protecting its own interests than with addressing the concerns of ordinary Britons. In his view, Brexit was a rebellion against this establishment, and the ongoing immigration debate is a continuation of that struggle. Robinson's appeal, while different in tone and substance, taps into similar sentiments. His focus on the cultural and social impacts of immigration, particularly from Muslim-majority countries, resonates with those who feel that their way of life is under threat. Robinson has built a following among people who believe that their concerns about immigration and cultural change are ignored or dismissed by mainstream politicians and media. His ability to articulate these concerns, albeit in a manner that is often controversial and inflammatory, has made him a significant figure on the far right of British politics. Together, Farage and Robinson present a formidable challenge to Starmer. Their ability to galvanize public opinion and frame the immigration debate in stark, emotive terms forces Starmer to navigate a political minefield. On one side, he faces the risk of alienating voters who are sympathetic to Farage and Robinson's views on immigration. On the other, he must avoid alienating those within his party and the broader electorate who view such rhetoric as dangerous and divisive. Starmer's response to this challenge will be crucial not only for his own political future, but also for the future of the Labour Party. The party has struggled in recent years to reconcile its traditional working-class base with its more progressive metropolitan wing.
From certain demographics which have loved and embraced this country, one of those demographics is Indians, Hindus, from India, and Sikhs. So no, I have absolute love for many minority groups that come to this country, and I wish to send them a message that we will stand with you. We will unify every community against the hostility and barbarianism of Islam. I'm not racist. I despise racism. Islam is not a race. Islam is a fascist, violent ideology which masquerades as a religion. And words like Islamophobia are created by absolute cowards who are scared to have the true discussion on the problems of the core teachings of Islam and who the barbarian was who founded it. He was a rapist, he was a murderer, he pillaged, and men who wish to perfect him and believe he is the moral compass for the world will go on to pillage, rape and murder as well.
They say your movement is racist and that it is a privileged white man's racist movement.
The issue of immigration is one of the most significant fault lines within the party, and how Starmer handles it could determine whether Labour can reunite these different factions and build a winning coalition. One of the strategies that Starmer has employed is to emphasize the economic benefits of immigration while also acknowledging the need for reform. He has argued that immigration, when managed properly, can bring significant benefits to the UK, including filling labour shortages, driving economic growth, and enriching British society. However, he has also recognized that the current system is not working as it should, and has promised to introduce reforms that will ensure that immigration is controlled and that the concerns of local communities are addressed. This approach is not without its merits. By focusing on the economic benefits of immigration, Starmer can appeal to those who recognize the need for a more nuanced and balanced debate on the issue. At the same time, by promising reform, he can reassure those who are concerned about the impact of immigration on their communities. However, this approach also has its risks. It requires a delicate balancing act, and there is always the danger that it will satisfy neither side of the debate. Moreover, Starmer's emphasis on the economic benefits of immigration—
We did it! You campaigned for it, you fought for it, you voted for it, and now it has arrived. Change begins now. And it feels good, I have to be honest. 4.5 years of work changing the party. This is what it is for. A changed Labour Party, ready to serve our country, ready to restore Britain.
May not be enough to counter the more emotive and cultural arguments put forward by Farage and Robinson. For many people, particularly in areas that have seen significant demographic change, the immigration debate is not just about economics, but also about identity, culture, and a sense of belonging. These are issues that are not easily addressed through policy alone and require a broader conversation about what it means to be British in a rapidly changing world. Farage and Robinson have been particularly adept at framing the immigration debate in these terms. They argue that the rapid pace of immigration, particularly from countries with very different cultural and religious backgrounds, has fundamentally changed the character of many communities in the UK. For them, this is not just an issue of numbers, but of values and identity. They contend that the government's failure to control immigration has led to the erosion of traditional British values and has created tensions between different communities. Robinson, in particular, has focused on the issue of integration, or rather, the lack thereof. He argues that many immigrants, particularly those from Muslim-majority countries, have not integrated into British society, and that this has led to the creation of parallel communities with different values and norms. Robinson has long warned of what he sees as the dangers of Islamization, and he uses this narrative to explain the recent riots, arguing that they are a reaction to the perceived erosion of British culture and identity. Farage, while less focused on the issue of Islam, has echoed similar concerns about the impact of immigration on British society. He has warned that unless the government takes action to control immigration, the UK risks becoming a divided and fragmented society, with different communities living in isolation from one another. For Farage, this is not just a question of social cohesion, but of national identity. He argues that the government has a responsibility to protect and preserve the values and traditions that define Britain as a nation. In response to these arguments, Starmer has tried to strike a more inclusive and conciliatory tone. He has emphasized the importance of building a society where everyone feels that they belong, regardless of their background. Starmer has also spoken about the need to address the concerns of those who feel left behind by globalization and immigration, while also standing up to those who seek to divide the country along racial or religious lines. However, this message has not always resonated with the public, particularly in areas that have seen significant demographic change. For many people in these communities, the immigration debate is not just about policy, but about their lived experiences. They see the changes in their communities firsthand, and they feel that their concerns are not being taken seriously by the political establishment. This sense of alienation and frustration has been exploited by figures like Farage and Robinson, who have positioned themselves as the voices of those who feel ignored or marginalized. They argue that the political establishment, including leaders like Starmer, are more concerned with appeasing liberal elites than with addressing the concerns of ordinary Britons. This narrative has proven to be particularly powerful in areas that have seen significant economic decline, where people feel that they have been left behind by globalization and that their concerns about immigration are being dismissed. The recent riots have only served to amplify these sentiments. Farage and Robinson argue that these riots are not just the work of a few extremists, but are a manifestation of widespread frustration among the British public. They contend that the riots are a warning sign that the public's patience is wearing thin, and that unless the government takes decisive action, the situation could deteriorate further. For Starmer, the challenge is not just to address the immediate issue of the riots, but also to tackle the underlying causes of the unrest. This will require a comprehensive approach that addresses both the economic and social factors that have contributed to the rise in anti-immigration sentiment. It will also require a willingness to engage in a broader conversation about immigration, identity, and the future of British society. One of the criticisms leveled at Starmer is that he has been too reactive in his approach to immigration, responding to events as they arise rather than setting out a clear and proactive vision for the future. Farage and Robinson have capitalized on this, arguing that Starmer's lack of leadership on the issue has created a vacuum that they have been only too willing to fill. In contrast, Farage and Robinson have been clear and consistent in their messaging. They argue that the only way to address the concerns of ordinary Britons is through stricter immigration controls and a tougher stance on those who refuse to integrate into British society. For them, this is not just a political issue, but a moral one. They contend that the government has a duty to protect the cultural and social fabric of the country, and that this can only be done by reducing the number of immigrants coming into the UK, and by ensuring that those who do come are willing to embrace British values. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what do you think about their stance on immigration riots? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.